All right, everybody. Let's jump into Tkinter menu buttons
Yeah.
today. You've got a great app, but you don't want to just like throw a ton of buttons at your users, right?
Right.
So that's where menu buttons, I think, are really cool. It kind of gives you that nice balance of, functionality and design.
Yeah.
And the source material that we have today is from Plus2Net, and they've got code examples and explanations.
Yeah. The menu button is it's great for giving choices without making things cluttered. It's almost like you click the button and then all these options appear. It's like a magic trick.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of the options, the source material jumps right into some code, which I always appreciate. So, you see the classic, importing Tkinter and setting up the basic window.
Yeah.
And then, bam, you've got the menu button, Tkinter menu button. There it is.
It's like magic, but what I think is really cool is how much you can actually control these menu buttons. You can link them to other Tkinter widgets like radio buttons or an entry field. So think about it. You could have like a radio button that lets users choose what options are even available in the menu button.
Oh, that's interesting.
Or how about using an entry field so the user can actually change the text on the button itself?
Wait, so you're saying you can even like swap out the text for an image?
Exactly.
Oh, that's cool. I'm picturing like a little icon instead of text. That adds some personality to an app.
Definitely. And that's just the beginning. There's a whole bunch of ways you can customize these things. Like you can change the background color when the user hovers over it, use different fonts. You can even control where that drop-down menu pops up.
Oh, wow.
Like left, right below, even flush with the button.
This direction thing, that's where things can get really creative. Like imagine you've got this menu button, tucked away in a corner of your app. Well, by using this direction option, you can make sure that drop-down menu doesn't overlap other stuff or get cut off by the edge of the screen.
And that attention to detail that can make a good GUI into a great one.
Okay, but what if you need to organize like a ton of options? Like what if you have a super complex app with tons of features?
Cascading menus, that's the solution. It's like those old word processor menus where you've got file at the top and then you click it and get open, save, print,
Right.
It's everywhere. And the source material even shows us how to do it in Tkinter. You basically create these nested menus inside your menu button, making this hierarchy of options.
Oh, so you're like creating menus within menus.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a great way to stay organized. I'm already starting to see how powerful these menu buttons can be. It's not just a simple drop-down. It's like a portal to all kinds of functionality.
And this actually brings up a key difference that the source material explains. The difference between a menu and a menu button. You see, the menu is the overall structure, like that menu bar at the top of programs. And the menu button, well, that's just a single button that opens up a drop-down.
Right.
Understanding that difference is super important if you want to design interfaces that are intuitive,
Absolutely. It's all about
Effortless.
making the user experience feel seamless.
Exactly. You want people to find what they need without getting lost in a maze of menus and buttons.
Yeah, and Tkinter menu buttons give you the tools to do that.
They really do.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground already. We've talked about what menu buttons are, how to create them, all those cool customization options.
We've seen how to link them with other widgets to make things really dynamic, like radio buttons and entry fields.
Oh yeah, and those cascading menus, they're super cool.
They're great for organizing all those complex features without overwhelming the user.
And we even clarified the difference between a menu and a menu button.
A key distinction for sure.
Yeah, it's all about understanding how these pieces fit together to make a great UI.
It really is.
And don't forget about those tips on how to control the direction of that drop-down menu.
Oh, yeah. That can make a huge difference.
That's like the final touch, makes everything come together. I'm already feeling a lot more confident about using menu buttons in my Tkinter project.
That's great. But remember, we've only just scratched the surface here.
Oh, I know.
There's so much more to discover in Tkinter.
I'm already thinking about how I could combine menu buttons with other Tkinter widgets that we haven't even talked about yet, like sliders, checkboxes, maybe even some graphics.
Now you're thinking like a true Tkinter master.
Well, I'm learning from the best.
That's the best part of these deep dives, isn't it? They give us the knowledge to go out and be creative.
Totally.
So what other Tkinter widgets could you use with menu buttons to make some really cool user experiences?
That's a great challenge, and I think it's time to get creative. I'm ready to jump back into my code and see what I can do.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So, one thing that I thought was really cool in the source material is how you can dynamically update the text on a menu button.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they use this thing called a string var. It's like a variable that's made to work with Tkinter widgets.
Right. So instead of the button always saying the same thing, it can actually change based on what's going on in the app.
Exactly. Like say you have a menu button that lets the user choose a language for the app. As soon as they pick the text on the button, changes to show their choice. It's a little detail, but it makes the app feel more responsive.
Yeah. It's like the GUI is actually listening to what the
Mhm.
user's doing. Those little things can really make a difference.
It's all about that user experience, right? And Tkinter gives you the tools to make that happen.
So before we go too far, I want to make sure we've hit all the basics from the source. We talked about what menu buttons are, how to create them with the tk.menubutton command,
Mhm.
and all the cool customization options.
We also saw how you can link menu buttons to other widgets, like radio buttons and entry fields, to create those dynamic interactions you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. And what about those cascading menus? It's like building those multi-level menus that we see everywhere.
Yeah, perfect for when you have a lot of features, but you don't want to overwhelm the user.
And we even talked about the difference between a menu and a menu button.
Right. That was an important one.
Understanding how those pieces fit together is key for making GUIs that are easy to use.
Definitely. And remember how we were talking about controlling the direction of the dropdown?
Oh, yeah.
That can have a big impact too.
It's like the finishing touch, you know, makes everything work just right. I feel like I'm getting a much better handle on menu buttons now.
That's great to hear, but this is really just the beginning.
Oh, I know.
There's so much more you can do with Tkinter.
I'm already thinking about how I could use menu buttons with other widgets we haven't even talked about, like sliders, checkboxes, maybe even some cool graphics.
I like how you're thinking.
I'm getting inspired.
That's the goal.
Okay, well, I'm ready to get back to my code and start playing around with these ideas.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So while you're doing that, think about this. What other Tkinter widgets could you combine with menu buttons to really take things to the next level?
That's like a challenge. I love it.
We've really opened up like a whole new world, you know?
I know, I'm already getting all these ideas. But I think we've got to wrap up this deep dive. So what are some of the things you hope our listeners take away from all this?
Well, I hope they've learned how versatile these menu buttons really are. They're not just simple drop-downs. They can be customized in so many ways. You can really make some amazing user experiences with these.
Yeah, and we saw how all those customization options can really make a difference. Yeah.
Exactly. It's all in the details, but this is just the beginning. There's so much more to explore with Tkinter.
Oh, I know.
So I hope our listeners will keep experimenting and see what they can come up with.
I agree. Every deep dive is like a step forward. It makes you want to learn more and try new things. Who knows what other Tkinter widgets are out there waiting to be used with menu buttons?
Right. That's the exciting part. There's always something new to learn, always a new challenge. So I hope everyone will keep that in mind as they go on their Tkinter journey.
Well said. Until next time, everybody, happy coding.